Hello, mental health warriors. It has been a hot minute since we last spoke. When I say a hot minute, I think it's been about a year since I last recorded a YouTube video for this channel. And even though I've had loads of ideas for videos and so many things that have happened over the past year, because a lot has happened, that have inspired me to talk to you guys and to share stories, I've just not had the energy and the motivation to do so. And I think a lot of you guys out there will be able to relate to that feeling at the moment. So know that you're not alone. A lot of us have our ideas just sitting there for when we have the energy to birth them. So yeah, that brings us to today. With COVID and with the pandemic, I've had a lot of time to sort of self-reflect and look back on how I got to the point I'm at now. I've become so much more confident in myself over the past, even just half a year, which has been empowering to say the least. And a lot of my friends have noticed this. People have messaged me saying that I seem much happier in myself. And while the year has had highs and lows, I think that's definitely one of the highs has been just coming to terms, well, not coming to terms with, but just being so much more confident in my sexuality and in expressing that freely and openly. And so, yeah, that kind of led me in one of my many periods of reflection to thinking, how did I get here? And my friend bought me a bullet journal, which was really sweet and has been encouraging me to use it. And I've just been jotting down a sort of timeline of, where I started as a young teenager with confusing feelings to now being able to be out and proud, having come out publicly. And I'll talk a little bit about coming out because, again, it's not something that everybody finds it's essential to do. But yeah, I think it would only be sensible in a video where I'm talking about my own story to just give a bit of a disclaimer. There's lots of different ways to come out. There's coming out to yourself, obviously coming to terms with the person that you know that you are in terms of your sexuality, in terms of your gender, whatever that may be. And then there's saying it out loud and, coming out to the people around you, coming out to the public, if you have social media or if you're in the public eye. And both those forms are, equally valid. And it's also valid if you're not a person that feels like you need to come out. You also might be a person who it's not in a safe position to come out at the moment, and I fully acknowledge I'm in a privileged position that I was raised in a really accepting household. My family were very loving. This wasn't exactly something we discussed, but I knew that I had their love and support, and that really did help to shape me to the person I am. And I know that not everybody is going to be lucky and in that situation. So if you are a person who feels like, if you were to live more honestly and freely, that you would be in danger from your family or your guardians or the people that you're living with, I've included resources in the description of this video. So, and I'm sending love and support, and I just hope that there can be a better time and a safer time for you in future, because it does get better, and just hang in there. Coming out, it's a journey. It's not a destination. And I said this to a friend recently when we were discussing the need for labels. And just like coming out, labels are something that some people benefit from, some people feel aren't as necessary. And I feel like for myself, having the label bisexuality has helped me to find this amazing queer community of people, and it's helped me to feel less alone and to relate, even if it's on silly meme pages that my best friend includes me in. It's a journey, and it's perfectly valid to feel one way at some point in time. And I know this sounds like a rewording of the horrible, it's just a phase that we'll get bashed over the head with, again, whether it's in terms of gender or sexuality. But it is perfectly valid to feel one way at some point in time and then to change your mind further down the line. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that or to invalidate your identity at all. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what it was like for me, because I have been reflecting a lot on especially my early experiences and how they kind of shaped me into the person I am today. And I guess like my first experiences of attraction and interest in people came when I was around sort of 13, 14. I was absolutely obsessed with collecting posters of people that I found visually appealing, of all genders. My bedroom was absolutely plastered with posters of just all the people I was obsessed with, and not just posters, newspaper cuttings, photographs. There was no space left on the wall. And it wasn't just that, it was things like music videos that I would become obsessed with watching on repeat. Shout out to people like Tia Carrera from Wayne's World and Kat Delona run the show, two that I was particularly obsessed with. And this was a confusing time. I was drawing a lot because I was always quite artistically minded, and I would draw beautiful women from animes and cartoons that I liked, and just draw them over and over again. And particularly, yeah, particularly curvaceous women, and just not really be understanding these feelings. And then I became an older teen. I started actually being able to express those feelings through socialization. I went to my first run of parties ever, which was the first in many, and I had my first kiss with a girl, and then all my subsequent kisses also with girls. And I started to think, wow, you know, this is really exciting. I'm feeling all the things that I'm supposed to be feeling in a first kiss, you know, in that first moment. But does it count? Almost. Because I'd been led to believe that, you know, your first kiss should be with a boy. Does this count? Is this just a silly party thing? I had a friend that would deliberately seek me out at parties and try and kiss me in front of her boyfriend. And I worried, you know, is this performative for them? It's real for me. I feel this attraction, and now I'm worried it's being seen as, oh, you know, just kissing them for the boys. And I had a couple of boyfriends, nothing serious, nothing really very long term, but enough for me to tell, you know, myself and the people around me, you know, that's it, I'm interested in boys now, you can stop making all these jokes. And my friends, I love my friends, they're amazing. My four horsemen particularly that I went to school with, but also just our table and the people around me. We were close enough that we could joke about these things, but they would often joke about what they called my ratio. Oops, hope I didn't break that. They would joke about my ratio of guys that I'd kissed to girls, where the girls far outweighed the guys, and that was just funny to them. Another friend asked me if I thought I was bi-curious, and honestly, I left high school with no idea. I continued the pattern when I went to university. I kissed friends of different genders and complicated situations, made things more confusing for myself. In my 20s, I met my long-term partner of now, Scott, and I never confided that attraction in him to other genders other than men, but I think he suspected, or I think he always knew, and anyway, he'd met my friends from high school who had told him the ratio stories, who had told him, you know, all the stories of all the parties, and he didn't judge me for any of that. And then it gets to when I'm 24, and this is what really kicked things into gear. And I just want to say to the friend involved in this story, I love you to pieces, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with what happened here. It was a very clear miscommunication, as I will describe now. But I make YouTube videos, and I make YouTube videos, as you'll know if you follow this channel, about mental health. And my friend asked me to collaborate on a video with them. So I assumed, okay, their video is about sexuality, but I'll be speaking from, you know, a mental health perspective, and they'll be talking about, you know, sexuality, their coming out and everything. And then my friend asks me point blank, so you identify as bisexual? And oh my god, my face. You should have seen my face. And they quote different times that I mean, maybe trying to backtrack, but they quote different times that I'd told them about going home with women, being with women on nights out, something I completely forgot I'd told them. And I panic and I lie and I say, no, I identify as straight. And then I let my friend have that video unedited. I tweaked horrifying bits like my face, my initial reaction, but that content was still there and that lie was on the internet. And I hated myself for it because I felt like a fraud. So then I continue my life. I'm with Scott and I start to develop more complex feelings for a female friend of mine. And I can't fathom how this fits into our relationship. I'm stressing out. It's causing distance between us. And eventually I tell him I think I'm bisexual. And he's nothing but supportive. He was so supportive. I cried a lot back then. I cried when I told other people too. It was just such a confusing time and I didn't know what it meant for me. Like I say, I didn't know what it meant for my relationship, but we stayed together. We're still together, you know? And the video, I had mixed feelings about. It was still up. It was still on the internet. I went to an amazing event not long after that, not long after telling Scott as well. It was a celebration of queer individuals all over the gender spectrum that the same friend I filmed the YouTube video with had invited me to volunteer at and to just participate in. And it was an amazing night of just queer theatre, art, performance. And then afterwards we marched and I met a stranger who was willing to listen to my story. And I'd had a few drinks, I got quite emotional, and I just told that person everything. And Flynn, if you're watching this, that was amazing, and it helped me so much to just articulate everything I'd been feeling about the lie that I felt I'd told about the person that I actually was. And then that very next day, after sleeping off the hangover, I met my friend, my best friend Courtney, in a Nando's, and I cried on her. And I told her, and she was so reassuring, and it just made me feel like, why did I ever feel like these people would have rejected me? They're so loving, so supportive. Following this, I booked myself onto a book fair, a bisexual book fair, the Big Bi Book Fair, I think it was called. And it was led by a panel of bisexual individuals all over the gender spectrum who told their stories, who had co-written this book called The Bible, which is great. I'll link it in the description as well. There's 2 volumes, they're fantastic. And it was so, I just felt like I was part of this community and hearing their stories and relating to bits and pieces of what they were saying as well, and feeling like I wasn't the only one who had felt those feelings growing up. I left feeling so inspired that I immediately, I drew the bisexual flag on my wrist in highlighter pen, and I just put up a post on Facebook just basically saying everything I've just said to you now, bar all the teenage stuff, because I've had to reflect on that more recently. And it was great. There was a flood of support, and that was how I told so many important people in my life. That's how I told my parents. And I guess that's one thing I just want to cut in here and say, it's not for anyone to tell you, oh, you should have told me, you know, I should have known before everybody else knew. You tell people in your own time. You tell people in your own way. Whether you feel inspired, whether you feel brave enough in a moment, or whether you feel safe enough in a moment, like I mentioned earlier, it is completely up to you when you feel you're ready to tell people about your identity. Nobody else. Nobody else gets to say when you get to tell your truth. So there's been a swell of support. My parents have been great. They've been so loving, as they always have been. My mum bought me this shirt. It says equality. It's a koala because she loves koalas. My sister baked me a cake for my last birthday. If I can figure out how to technologically, I'll insert a clip here, but it's basically a cake and the frosting was in the colours of the bisexual flag, which I have behind me. And I know, I'm not crying, you're crying. It was so lovely, and I'm so grateful for all of their love and support. And there have been hard times too. I mean, objectively, I don't face as many obstacles coming out and being freely myself as I would living in any of the 70 plus countries where my sexuality is illegal. You know, the reasons we still need pride. But, you know, there's been hard times. When I first posted that post, the one with the flag and my truth, I received a message from an old high school friend, one that I used to play tennis with and been quite close with, saying he didn't agree with my lifestyle. He no longer wanted to associate with me. And it hurt. We cut ties then, and I felt for the first time I was properly losing people over this, the thing I was so afraid of. And for the most part, even though I felt looks when I'm holding a girl's hand on a date, or, you know, being intimate with someone in public, you know, and I felt those looks, but for the most part, I feel my enemy is internal. I'm worried about the stigma. I'm worried, I'm gonna get emotional. I'm worried that things I do will be perceived as predatory. I remember there was a really nice female colleague of mine who had a really bad date once. I bought her a gift and feeling like it was maybe a bit much, but I'm kind of over the top as a person anyway, and particularly when it comes to gifts and things. You know, if you're my friend, you know. And I bought her, I think it was like a little teddy bear and a card, and then immediately regretted it. Didn't sign a name on the card. I just wanted it to cheer her up, but then I immediately started over-analysing it. Oh, now everyone's going to think I'm coming on to her, everyone's going to think I'm interested in her, and it's going to totally change the dynamic in the office, even if they don't know it's me. Anytime I give a female friend a compliment, or somebody gives someone a compliment on behalf of me, I worry how it's going to reflect on me. So yeah, like I say, my enemy is internal, and these are all stigmas that I'm trying to get over, that society has anyway. I'm just taking them on and internalizing them. Stigmas like, oh, you're bisexual, you're more likely to be promiscuous, you're more likely to be greedy. And for that reason, I just want to say to all the allies out there, just be aware of how many people around you may be a different gender, a different sexuality than you realize, and that your words matter. The things that you're saying, the stereotypes that you're buying into, these things matter. I remember a friend telling me before I'd come out to them, before I'd come out to that group of friends, and this was in front of a group of people, that they wouldn't be able to deal if their boyfriend was bisexual because it would make him twice as likely to cheat on her. And that comment, I still remember it now as hurtful, but at the time it set me back telling that group of friends, which is a shame because they were a really good group of friends and ones I was really close with. So as the great creator on YouTube, Samantha Lux, would say, be careful who you hate because it might be someone you love. Okay? But for the most part, I have had such a great swell of support. Coming out can be scary, but it can also be so empowering. We're so lucky now, you know, it's not the 1950s, the 1970s anymore. There are communities, there are forums, there are things all around us that can connect us, social media, groups in our community, obviously less so now with COVID, but so many ways of meeting other people like us. We no longer live in a quote-unquote well of loneliness, as it were. And yeah, I think that's probably where I'm going to end this video, because, you know, I've told my story, and I encourage any of you who want to share your stories with me, with anyone else, to do so, because I think when I was talking about the different people who, I've just broken that again, who share their stories and why they share their stories, some people might do it to empower other people out there. I kind of hope that's what this video can be, is just to encourage other people to express themselves as their real selves. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to me. I'll include resources in the description, and yeah, as always, you know, stay strong, mental health warriors. I know it's not an easy time, but I love you and I appreciate you. Okay?